Okay. So what was the school like for you? What was you a good kid? What was it like that? What was that like?
Yeah. So born in Maine, moved to Florida, grew up going to a Catholic school, of course, right? And had the the chicks had the plaid skirts and I mean, just like in the movie, we had a nun for a principal. I mean, it was like the full blown thing. And yeah, I grew up super athletic kid, and ADHD, ADD was diagnosed in second grade. They put me on Ritalin like right out of the gate. Like, here you go, take this. And my parents, bless their hearts, they didn't know. They were like, sure, he's all over the place. So started with Ritalin, then went to Strattera, then Adderall. I mean, just pumping me with amphetamine since 10 years old, like it's a normal thing. And but what I remember about childhood, I was always all over the place, and my peers loved rock music and skateboarding. I liked basketball and hip hop, rap music. So like schoolyard fights, I got I had friends, but definitely up until seventh grade, it was like I just remember always clashing with people. Sixth grade, the entrepreneurial spirit hit. I started selling candy and CDs. And I mean, I had like color coded albums where you could pick the pre-recorded CDs that I had for $5. If you wanted the mix yourself and like, custom, it was $8. I mean, I had this thing pretty legit for a sixth grader, I'd say. And then, buying candy wholesale, selling at retail. And in seventh grade, I actually I'll say her name, Sister Dorothy. If you're listening, sorry. She kicked me out. She basically just called my parents and was just like, you know what, your son is just a little bit too much. We're going to ask him not to come back next year. That was their way of expelling me. So they let me finish the school year in seventh grade. In eighth grade, I had to go somewhere else. And so I went to public school. And when I got into ninth grade, high school, selling candy and CDs, it's not really the cool thing to do, right? It's don't have a really good rap there, but we were smoking weed at that point, and I didn't hit my growth spurt. So ninth grade is basically like I threw in the towel. I was a big basketball player. I was really good as a kid because your size isn't as big as a factor. You get into high school, it's just not the same. So I was frustrated. I didn't, and I ended up quitting sports and I started selling weed. My entrepreneurial spirit said, hey, we're smoking it already. We're already buying it. You might as well be the one to have it and, take care of your people. Right. So, very thoughtful person I was. So I started selling the weed and, it basically turned in and took a life of its own. By 11th grade, I was selling to multiple schools. I had multiple people selling underneath me. I was like trying to convince my parents at 17 years old that what I was doing was like legit. And like, you guys need to let me do my thing. Let me fly. And they weren't having it. Of course, they tried to get me out of it. And, but I just was bent on building this business up. And so, that's what it was. And, then after post high school started going into other things, pills, coke. That's when it started to get really ugly. Not that any of the other stuff was glamorous, but I don't mean to downplay the seriousness of it, but, I thought it was all fun and games until it got real. And when it got real, I started using. I developed a bad addiction to these drugs. Specifically in Florida, we had a big pill epidemic that swept through. It's affected our nation as a whole with the OxyContin. There's been documentaries on it, the OxyContin Express, and I got wrapped into that. I basically was doctor shopping, is what they call it, taking people, funding the payments, and then getting the prescriptions, and then reselling. And sure enough, I got hooked on those pills as well. So I became this black hole of just feeding my habit while also selling these things. And I was just lost, man. I was a broken human, no vision, no direction, no idea like what I was doing. I was selling drugs since high school. So I labeled myself as like, I was this drug dealer is the identity I took on, and definitely an addict as well. And I was so attached to the money and the glamour that I like overlooked the negative effects and the way I wasn't in touch with reality is the best way I can explain. And So in 2012, I ended up getting wrapped up in a charge. The detectives labeled as a drug deal gone bad. I had a beef with another dealer. We robbed him, and I was sentenced to 4 years in prison. And so, you look at a kid, 22 years old, again, all fun and games until your back's finally against the wall. I had never served any serious time. This was my first time catching a felony. And that's where I had to face my biggest enemy up until that point, which was myself, And so that's where the journey of my life, I would say, truly began to set the tone for what is now a beautiful, value-driven, purpose-driven life, was